His 11-year-old daughter noticed something wriggling inside the bottom of a bag of bananas. Inside, a live scorpion.
I took it from her, looking at it, just thinking, there's a scorpion in here. Like, I've never seen a scorpion.
The fruit aisle feels safe, bright, sweet, innocent. Rows of apples polished to perfection. Bananas curved just right. Berries gleaming like jewels under fluorescent lights. You walk past them with trust, with habit. Because fruit is good for you, right? But what if that glossy apple isn't fresh at all? What if that berry's been frozen, thawed, and sprayed, just to fake a shelf life? What if what you're really buying lets a performance, that perfect shine? It's often wax. That sweet scent, sometimes artificial. And the freshness? A carefully constructed illusion designed to sell, not to nourish. You see, the fruit you're picking up didn't just fall off a tree. It's traveled, it's been processed. And in many cases, it's been tampered with. But no one tells you that. Because if you knew what really happened to that fruit before it hit your cart, you might think twice before taking a bite. That bright red apple in your hand, it didn't just come from the orchard. It may have been picked 6 months ago, on the other side of the world. Shipped in crates, stored in darkness, held in massive refrigerated warehouses, where time is paused, but freshness fades. And when it's finally ready to hit the shelf, they bring it back to life. With wax to shine, and with gas to ripen, and with dye to deceive. It looks fresh, it smells sweet, but the inside often mealy, flavorless, and drained of nutrients. Rotten doesn't always mean spoiled. Sometimes it just means lifeless. A piece of fruit that survived the system, but lost everything that made it real. You see a vibrant harvest, but what you're holding is engineered ripeness, built to trick your eyes, not feed your body. Because in today's grocery stores, ripe is no longer real. It's just another layer of packaging. You walk into Walmart and see the mountain of apples, perfectly stacked, each one glistening like it was just picked. The signs scream, fresh! The price is unbeatable. But what they don't tell you is what's covering that shine. These apples are coated in wax, not the kind from nature, but chemical compounds designed to seal in the illusion. Petroleum-based, shelf-stable, and water-resistant. They soak the apple, they buff it, they make it glow under the lights, and beneath that glossy surface, an apple that's been in cold storage for months, nutrients faded, flavor dulled, freshness gone. Walmart is famous for bulk produce bins, for bargain shoppers and high-volume turnover. But what's really turning over is quality. Because when profit comes before perishability, it's not about feeding you, it's about selling a look. And in this case, that look is a carefully waxed lie. You bring the fruit home, you rinse it under the tap, maybe even scrub it with a brush, hoping to wash away what doesn't belong. But some things don't come off so easily. Pesticide residue isn't just on the surface. It seeps in, through the skin, into the flesh. Bonded at the molecular level, like glue you can't see. And here's the worst part. Some of the biggest grocery chains source from growers with the heaviest spray routines in the world. Countries with banned chemicals. Farms where protective suits are worn, just to pick the fruit. Yet that same fruit ends up on your shelf. Bright, beautiful, poisoned. The labels say clean, but they don't show the drift from crop dusters. They don't list the chemical cocktails used to keep pests off, even if it means putting you at risk. Because for these suppliers, volume matters more than health. And your fruit is soaked in that truth. They look perfect. Golden yellow, no spots, no bruises, lined up in neat rows, almost too flawless to be real. That's because they're not. At Kroger, bananas aren't ripened by time. They're ripened by gas. Ethylene pumped into sealed chambers, forcing green, unripe fruit to turn yellow in days. It doesn't just change the color, it changes the chemistry. The texture becomes rubbery. The sweetness? Faint. Artificial. The inside? Hollow, dry, and strangely elastic. But you wouldn't know that until you take a bite. These bananas didn't ripen on a tree. They didn't bask in the sun. They were chemically aged, like plastic molded into fruit. This store wants speed, not flavor, not nutrition. And while the peel may promise something delicious, What you're actually eating is an empty shell of what nature intended. It looks alive, but inside, it's fruit that's already dead. It says fresh and it says natural, but that piece of fruit in your hand, it's been on a journey and not a gentle one. Thousands of miles, across oceans, through customs, in sealed crates and metal containers, picked too early, shipped too late, preserved with chemicals, irradiated to kill bacteria, frozen to pause decay, then thawed, repackaged, and dyed to look alive. By the time it reaches your store shelf, it's already changed, its nutrients weakened, its flavor dulled, its story rewritten. And yet, the sticker says, product of nature, as if sunlight and soil brought it here overnight. But nature didn't do this. Corporations did, logistics did, profit margins did. This isn't farm to table. It's factory to freight, to fiction. Because if you knew what your fruit had been through, what it endured to appear fresh, you'd realize the truth. You're not buying fruit, you're buying a performance. They're beautiful, big, bold, bright red, strawberries stacked in perfect pyramids, each one gleaming like glass under fluorescent lights. But don't let the shine fool you. These berries were engineered to look perfect. Not taste perfect, not feel perfect, just look perfect. They're soaked in fungicides, chemicals designed to fight mold, not nourish your body. Packed tightly into plastic clamshells that trap moisture and accelerate decay. And the flavor? Watery, hollow, a whisper of what a strawberry used to be. Aldi sells them by the ton, because customers can't resist the beauty. But what you're really buying is an illusion. Artificial size, color, and shelf life. The berries aren't sweet, they're swollen. Bred for endurance, not nutrition. Because when profit is king, taste is the first thing to die. You think you're buying fruit, but what you're holding is shelf art, dressed up like food. It looks fine, a little soft maybe, but still bright, still edible. You toss it in your cart, never suspecting what's hiding beneath the skin. In some stores, fruit is packaged just before it turns. Not when it's fresh, not when it's ripe, but when it's about to rot. They seal it in plastic, locking in moisture, trapping heat. A perfect incubator for mold. You won't see the spores at first. They're invisible, growing deep in crevices, spreading through pulp, waiting for warmth. By the time you get it home, by the time you take a bite, it's already begun to spoil. You just don't know it yet. Then a strange taste, a soft spot, a sudden illness with no explanation. This isn't bad luck, it's bad practice. Because some stores care more about clearing shelves than protecting your gut. And the mold? It's already been invited in. The deals look too good to pass up. Fruit piled high, prices slashed, signs screaming fresh in bold red letters. But step closer, and the truth starts to show. Bruised skins, soft spots hidden beneath clever angles. Fruit that's been handled, dropped, repackaged, again and again. Dollar General isn't just selling bargains. It's offloading leftovers. Fruit that couldn't sell elsewhere. Fruit nearing the end of its life. Masked to look brand new. Sometimes they even spray it. Synthetic fruit scents to trick your senses. A whiff of strawberry, chemically engineered. A hint of citrus, manufactured in a lab. You think you're getting a deal, but what you're really getting is waste disguised as value. It's not just deceptive, it's dangerous. Because old fruit doesn't just lose nutrients, it gains mold, bacteria, and chemical residue. And in this store, what smells sweet might just rot you from the inside. Every year, the list comes out. The dirty dozen. 12 fruits and vegetables with the highest levels of pesticide residue. Measured, tested, proven. Apples, grapes, nectarines, strawberries. They show up again and again. And in some stores, they dominate the shelves. Because they're cheap to source, easy to stack, and profitable to sell. These chains know exactly what they're offering. They've read the reports. They've seen the numbers. And still, they'd load their produce aisles with the dirtiest fruit in the country. Not because they have to, but because most shoppers don't know. Or don't ask. They count on that. They rely on your trust, on your routine, on your silence, but silence doesn't make those chemicals disappear. It just lets them in, one bite at a time. Because when it comes to pesticides, ignorance isn't bliss, it's exposure. The sign says fresh today, but what's in the container tells a different story. Pineapple that feels rubbery, mangoes that leak syrup, blueberries with that dull, icy aftertaste. Food Lion doesn't just sell fruit, it sells a lie, neatly repackaged, carefully thawed, and placed in clear containers meant to distract you. You think it was cut this morning, but it wasn't. Those chunks were frozen for months, shipped in bulk, stored in industrial freezers, then thawed overnight and sold as fresh. There's no warning, no label that says previously frozen. Just a price tag, a plastic lid, and a promise they know isn't true. This isn't just about taste, it's about trust. Frozen fruit loses nutrients, it softens, it spoils faster. And yet, this store calls it fresh because the ice has melted. And the truth was never invited to the shelf. They hover in silence, tiny, harmless looking, easy to ignore. But fruit flies are never random. They're a signal, a warning, because where fruit flies gather, rot is already in motion. Something's breaking down, something's dying. In clean stores, they're rare, but in others, they swarm. Over produce bins, around soft peaches, near the drains you never see. Some stores don't clean it up, they just cover it up, spraying artificial fruit scents into the air, masking the sour smell with something sweeter. But that peach, it's not ripening, it's spoiling. Its sugars are fermenting. And your gut will feel it later. The signs are there. Soft spots, sticky skins, faint sourness in the air. But we've been trained not to notice, to keep shopping, to trust the lighting instead of our senses. Fruit flies aren't the problem. They're the proof. And if they're in the air, rot is already on your plate. It says 100% organic. The label is green, the font is soft. The promise feels safe. You trust it because you want to. But behind that label is a loophole. Safeway sources much of its organic fruit from overseas, places where regulations are weak, inspections are rare, and paperwork is easily forged. There have been scandals, shipments exposed, containers filled with fruit sprayed in fields, then relabeled at sea. And by the time it reaches your cart, the lie is sealed in ink. No one tells you, not the grocer, not the brand, not the certifier who looked the other way. You think you're avoiding pesticides, but you're not. You're just paying more for the illusion. Because in this store, organic doesn't mean clean. It means unverified, unwatched, and in some cases, unsafe. The fruit may be labeled with nature, but behind the scenes, the system is anything but. They want you to believe they care about freshness, about quality, about your health. But grocery stores aren't in the business of wellness. They're in the business of return customers. And the cycle they've built, it's working. You feel tired, bloated, run down. So you reach for something clean. You fill your cart with fruit, thinking it's medicine. But that fruit is sprayed, stored, processed, stripped of nutrients long before it hits your plate. So you keep coming back, looking for energy, for relief, for answers, and the store, it keeps feeding you the same lie. Wrapped in cellophane, branded as healthy, priced just high enough to feel worth it. But the truth is simple. They profit when you don't feel better, when you keep searching, when you stay sick enough to return. That fruit isn't healing you, it's holding you in place. If your fruit had a warning label, you might pause. You might hesitate before biting in, before handing it to your child, before blending it into something meant to heal. But there's no label, no skull and crossbones, no fine print that says waxed, sprayed, stored, dyed, and gassed. Just a shine, a sticker, and a lie. The truth is, the fruit industry doesn't label the danger because it doesn't have to, because it's too profitable to hide and too silent to stop. So now, it's on you. Read the codes, look for the 9s. Avoid the 3s, wash what you can, peel what you can't, and ask the questions they hope you never ask. Because every bite is a choice. And every choice is a vote. A vote for truth or for illusion, for your health or for theirs. The next time you reach for fruit, remember what's hiding underneath and decide if it's worth the bite.